Hey everyone, Sean Deveney here from Heavy Sports. We're here to talk NBA and the NBA offseason, which even though here it is in early August, it is still very much front of mind and in the headlines. I've got with me NBA insider Steve Bulpett. Steve, how are you this morning?
Fine, Sean, you?
I'm doing very, very well. It's not morning, I should point out, but sometimes it feels like it. So
I'm not here to judge, Sean.
Yeah, my time telling skill has never been a strong point.
Well, you've always kind of lived on you've always kind of lived on Fiji time, as I recall.
Yeah, right. One day, that'll be my everyday time.
Is that why you were late to school all the time in Lynn?
Yes, that's right. I was right on time in Fiji. I want to jump in because you had a story this week about Kevin Durant and him meeting with Joe Tsai, the owner of the Nets. Obviously, whatever's going on with Durant and the Nets, it has reached a stalemate. There doesn't seem to be much movement in terms of potential deals and what might be out there for the Nets to take in a Durant trade. How do you see this playing out? What are you hearing about where this is now?
Well, I think the stalemate is basically because the Nets aren't getting back what they're seeking, and that's pretty easy to figure out. I mean, I know this was maybe one or two stories ago. The point that was brought across by talking to GMs was that, look, if you're trading for Kevin Durant, it means you're going for a championship now. You're not getting Kevin Durant as, oh, look, we're a good team now, and we used to stink before. You're getting him to go for a championship. And when you finish giving up what you have to get Kevin Durant, is there enough left around him to, legitimately contend for a championship? So I think that's the hurdle that a lot of teams are kind of tripping over when they look at, hey, yeah, we'd all love to have Kevin Durant, but if I give you Kevin Durant, if I give you everything that you want, then we'll be Kevin Durant and a G League team. Not that bad. Of course, I'm overstating things. It's kind of what I do. But yeah, that's the situation that I think they're running up against, and they've got to decide, how they're going to handle this. Are they going to take, a deal that's the best they can get, or are they just going to say, heck, we're going to go into the season with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and hope for the best?
Yeah. I think the fact that he's 34, or going to be 34, and has had the health things that have come up in the last couple of years, that's because, look, I think the Nets, if they could get Devin Booker, if they could get Bam Adebayo, or if they could get Jaylen Brown, would work out something. Like that's a starting point for them. But all three teams, whether it's the Celtics, the Suns, or the Heat, they don't want to give up, guys who are in their early to mid 20s, who are just entering their prime years, who aren't even there yet, for a guy who, you just don't know how long he's going to be around.
But in the case of Miami, first of all, the Adebayo thing is a non-starter for a couple reasons. Number one, as long as you still have Ben Simmons, you can't have two guys on rookie max extensions. That screws that up. And there's the fact that, the Heat saw PJ go away, and they need size. So they're right now they're at a deficit in terms of big people, and they can't, even if the Nets were to make a corollary move where they get rid of Ben Simmons and bring something good in return that helps them, you still, if you're Miami, it's hard to give up Bam Adebayo because what else you got in the middle. There's that part. There are those things there, and is what you're going to get for Kevin Durant going to leave you any better than if you just keep him, hold your breath, and see how it goes out, see how it plays out?
Yeah, I think the one thing that works in the Nets' favor in terms of that is that Kevin Durant is not the kind of guy who's going to do a Ben Simmons. He's not going to sit out. He loves to play basketball. He's not going to go in and give you 60%. He's going to go in for 100%. You know, if he's wearing the uniform and he's on the floor, he's going to go full bore. It's not going to be, you know, a Jimmy Butler situation in Minnesota. It's not going to be Ben Simmons, that kind of situation last year. He's going to play.
Yeah, a league source in this last story we wrote, a league source that knows Kevin Durant well basically said that, you know, that he's going to play. And, you know, you mentioned his injury issues. Sure, that's a thing. But in terms of his age, I think his game's going to translate just fine to these next few years. He's never going to stop being 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
He's never going to stop. He's never going to forget how to shoot. So he'll always have the ability to shoot over a defense. You know, I think there was some fatigue and things like that where he had to force things a bit in that first round series against Boston. And as much as everyone talks about it, hey, the Celtics swept the Nets. The Nets just got broomed out of the playoffs. There were some close games there. So, you know, it's not, you know, all sweeps are not created equal in terms of their, you know, if you're grading for style points.
Yeah, it wasn't another demolition kind of thing. Let me change gears a little bit, Steve, because one of Kevin Durant's former teams, the Warriors, I'm a little curious about them. You know, they've lost some guys who were fairly important to their championship run, certainly Otto Porter Jr. And Gary Payton Jr. as well. Those two guys, they also lost Bielica and Juan Toscano Anderson, Damian Lee, you know, lesser players who didn't play that big of a role. But they're replacing these guys with Dante DiVincenzo and JaMychal Green, pretty much. Is that enough? Are the Warriors a better team now? Are they a worse team? Where do you see the Warriors in terms of heading into next year with what they've got?
Number one, I think they'll be fine. So however this washes out, I think they'll still be, you know, major contender to win the West and to win the whole thing. I do think they're going to miss Gary Payton. He was, some people say around the league say their best defender, which is saying a bunch with a team like that has a guy like Draymond Green. But, you know, GP had the ability to get into guys. And you saw that with what he, you know, with how he played in the finals, and he was coming back off injury. So there's reason to believe that he will be even better this coming season. I think that, you know, you're going to see certain guys that didn't play as much this year having to step up. You know, the two rookies from last year, you know, should be getting much more of a look. I think, you know, if Wiseman's healthy, he'll get much more of a look as well. So, you know, they could be better just getting more out of what's already within them.
Yeah, I think JaMychal Green will play some small ball center, but not a lot. I think that they're expecting that James Wiseman can come in and be that backup center that they need behind Looney. You know, they lose Bielica, like I say, and you know, that's going to leave a hole there unless Wiseman can fill up. So there's probably a little bit of pressure on him. You know, certainly off of what was a mediocre, you know, there were some signs with his rookie year, but wasn't great. And then missing all of last year, really, really surprisingly, with a knee injury that, you know, it seemed like never ended.
Yeah, but, you know, look, Bielica was more of an outside guy anyway. You know, he wasn't really like a pounded inside guy. I think Wiseman, you know, given health, I think he can be a real beast for them. But you know, they're playing, you know, a lot of motion off the ball stuff, so they're gonna be fine. You know, when it gets into a tight playoff game and it's possession for possession, you know, we'll see how. Again, hoping that Wiseman is healthy all year, we'll see what he looks like when it comes time for those kind of games.
Yeah. I think that the Warriors will be able to manage some things maybe there's a move to be made during the season. But I think DiVincenzo is going to add a pretty nice dimension for them when it comes to replacing. Certainly when it comes to replacing what Peyton did. It's going to be tough, but a little better offensively there. So, some trade-off there. Another guy that I wanted to take a look at is Gordon Hayward and his situation in Charlotte. 2 years left on his deal. He got the big deal, $120 million to leave Boston when the Celtics were negotiating with the Pacers, and that was sort of going sideways. The Hornets step in with $120 million. 2 years in, he hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's missed 82 games 81 games in his last 3 years. Does he have a future in Charlotte? With the Miles Bridges stuff that's going on, and the Hornets, maybe in need of sort of recalibrating things around LaMelo Ball. Is this a guy who you could see possibly being on the move in the coming months, if not weeks?
Well, I think you said the key name, which is Miles Bridges. I think that situation really is going to be the problem that could cause a lot of change here. I think with Miles Bridges, you might ride things out with a Gordon Hayward because he is the kind of guy, again, when he's on the floor. And we saw this with the Celtics because his absence was a killer. He's the kind of guy that the ball's going to keep moving. He's going to be, just a great additive to your offense. It's like he's like putting motor oil in, he'll make the engine run smoothly or more smoothly than it would otherwise. And you could probably get by with that and hoping you can get him to the postseason and your other guys, your young guys improve and Ball is better. But with the Bridges situation being at best uncertain and at worst gone, that's the Hornets are like, where are we now? They were a team like that was showing really positive steps forward, but taking that one, not saying that Miles Bridges is their best player by any means, but taking that component out of their offense, out of their game overall, even, where does that leave them? Do they have, a lot more work to do in terms of constructing something that's going to work?
Yeah, he had such a breakout year last year. It's so obvious the way he gets up and down the floor, how well that fits with LaMelo Ball. You take that away, and now if you're the Hornets, you have to say, okay, where do we go next? At the very least, I think Bridges and I hate to prognosticate on this kind of thing, but just going by what where the league is and what the charges against him are, it's hard to see him being suspended for anything less than a half a year, I would say at least, and that's a complete guess. But just going based on the past things, it's I think the league is going to be pretty tough with this, and
his availability might not get determined by the Hornets or the NBA.
Right. Well, that's true. Yes.
So there could be there are bigger players in play here. So that's a serious situation.
Right.
And even if it's a relatively modest suspension and you're able to have them back, is that going to work? Is your fan base going to accept that? How's that going to play out? And it's amazing, but that's that's a very serious issue.
Yeah, right.
And it feels almost unseemly to be discussing it in basketball terms, but that's what we're supposed to do because we're a sports page and we're the NBA part of that sports page, but it's a little uncomfortable, I would say.
No, right, absolutely, yeah. That obviously there's much bigger things to be concerned about with his wife and his girlfriend and certainly his son as well. But that also reflects how difficult the decisions that the Hornets are going to have to make are. Let's say he gets suspended. Now you have to decide, okay, after the suspension, is this a guy we still want? Is this still a guy that we want, parents to bring their kids to see? Are they going to be willing to do that?
And because of his, contractual situation, what's the interest going to be around the league?
Yeah. So, well, thank you, Steve. Appreciate you joining me, and thanks everybody for having a look. Remember, Heavy Sports. You can get all your NBA news over at heavy.com. And thanks for joining us.